Good evening, Castlers. Hello, it's Defo7 here again to highlight a game that was completed on February 18th. A Team Match Championship League Round 2 matchup between M. Chang with the white pieces from Cuba, representing Paok Chess Club, and our very own the baddest man in the club, quote-unquote, two-time LC champ and number 2 ranked player Ydtd with the black pieces, representing Let's Castle. Let's get into it. M. Chang starts off with E4, King's Pawn opening. Controlling the center and opening up the light squared bishop and queen. As you can see on the screen here, Ydtd responds with the Sicilian defense, C5, which controls the D4 square. Next move, knight F3 from white, develops the knight toward the center. Alright, so we got good development so far. Knight C6 from Ydtd helps control both the D4 square and E5 square. M. Chang then plays D4, offering to trade a center pawn for the C5 pawn in exchange for more control of the center and quick development. C takes D4 gives Ydtd 2 central pawns versus 1 central pawn for M. Chang. Here's the 2 for Ydtd as black, and here's the 1 central pawn for white, M. Chang. M. Chang recaptures the pawn with knight takes D4. Ydtd develops his kingside knight. M. Chang defends the E4 pawn and puts more pressure on the D5 square with knight C3. E6 from Ydtd, bishop E3, bishop B4, bishop D3 from white, knight E5, H3, castles, castles. All right, the kings are put to safety by both teams. Knight takes D3 from Ydtd, C takes D3 from M. Chang. Equal trade, but Ydtd now has the lethal bishop pair. Having and ladies and gentlemen, having a bishop pair is powerful in any phase of chess, but it's precious during the endgame because it will always be difficult for the side playing against the bishop pair to bring their king to the center, as it will run into annoying checks or even mate threats. So having a bishop pair is golden, and that's what Ydtd has so far. Let's see if he can use it to his advantage. B6 from Ydtd, looking for a possible fianchetto of his bishop to B7 maybe? It's an idea. Knight C2 from M. Chang, hitting the bishop on B4. Ydtd moves his bishop to safety with the move bishop to E7. E5 looking to kick the knight away. Knight E8 for Ydtd. D4. Bishop A6, hitting M. Chang's rook and winning tempo when it retreats. Good move, Ydtd. Rook E1 for M. Chang. F6. Knight E4. F5. Knight C3. Knight C7 from black. D5. Ydtd plays 17. E takes D5. Not bad, but I believe F4 is probably the stronger move and gives Ydtd the better position. Let's take a look at this. Now, he played E takes D5. I think F4 is the better position. Yeah, he should have just moved that pawn down, right? Because then you get lines like the best line here would be after F4, bishop 5, knight takes D5, F3, G7, and B4. I think that's a stronger position for Ydtd. Plus, that pawn is on the 3rd rank right here, which is buffered by the rook on F8. I know I'd be worried if I'm white, but that wasn't played, so it's a moot point. Back to E takes D5. Knight takes D5, played by M. Chang, equal trade. Bishop B7, hitting the knight on D5. Knight takes E7 check from white, eradicating Ydtd's bishop pair. Queen takes E7, equal trade. Queen d6 from M. Chang, looking to trade off queens and head straight to the endgame. Ydtd obliges and plays queen takes d6. E takes d6, equal trade with the pawn threatening the knight on c7. Knight e6. Rook a d1. M. Chang putting his rook behind his isolated pawn. Good move. Rook a c8. Ydtd takes an open file and hits the knight on c2. Yes. Knight d4. Knight takes d4 from Ydtd. Bishop takes d4. Equal trade, people. Rook f e8. Bishop c3 from M. Chang. g6. Bishop f6. Rook takes e1 check. Rook takes e1. M. Chang completes the equal trade. King f7. Ydtd attacking the bishop. Bishop g5. Rook e8. Great move, Ydtd. Looking to trade rooks. M. Chang says, nah, I'm not ready to trade, placing his bishop on e7. Bishop d5, hitting the pawn on a2. M. Chang plays rook c1 and ignores defending the hanging pawn immediately because he knows if Ydtd takes it, he'll even up the material with the line. Let's see. Let's take a look at this. This is, he's like, here, take my pawn, please. Let's take a look at this one. Now, bishop takes a2. You see, and take pawn. So if he takes that pawn, then you get lines like bishop rook a1, e7, king e6, rook a1, bishop c6, f3, b5, and king f2. And the position is even. So to his credit, Ydtd sees this and plays bishop to c6 to plug up the open file. Good job. M. Chang then plays the disconcerting move a4. I was baffled by that. Which gives away his pawn for free with the move bishop takes a7 by Ydtd. So the black hat wearer is now up a pawn. All right. M. Chang threatens his bishop with rook a1. And then Ydtd capitulates and plays bishop c6, letting him have the free pawn on a7. But the better move would have been just bring that bishop, bring the pawn to b5, supporting the bishop. Let's take a look at that one. Let's back this up. What we gotta do is just bring this pawn to b5, I thought. So that's move 32. Let's take a look at that. 32. b5. Just bring the pawn down and support your bishop. Okay, and then you run into lines like rook a3, rook c8, rook e3, f3, rook e8, rook e5, bishop d3, king f2. And Ydtd would definitely have a better position with the eval bar having Ydtd up by 2 points. Ydtd would have 2 extra pawns. Let's get what we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 compared to 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I miscount? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry. He'd be up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He'd be up a pawn, but he still has the advantage because they both have 3 pawn islands. You got 1, 2, 3. 3 pawn islands. 1, 2, 3. The only difference is M. Chang has 2 isolated pawns to defend. This is winning for Ydtd. He's strong enough in the end game where he could bring this 747 in for a smooth landing. However, that wasn't played, and after bishop c6, let's go to the game. Rook takes a7 played by M. Chang equalizes the material. Ydtd offers a rook trade with rook a8. M. Chang obliges. Rook takes a8. Bishop takes a8. f4. King e6. King f2. Both players getting their kings involved in the endgame now. b5. g3. h5. h4. Bishop e4. Good move by Ydtd, taking an outpost. There's no pawn that can kick his bishop off that square. King e3. King d5. Bishop f8 from M. Chang. Bishop c2. Bishop e7. M. Chang takes an outpost as well. No pawns can kick his bishop off. King c5. Bishop f8. B4, bishop E7, king C4, bishop F8, king B3, bishop G7. Great move from M. Chang, defending his isolated pawn on the second rank. King C4 from Ydtd, bishop F6, king D5, attacking the isolated pawn on D6. Bishop E7 defends the pawn on D6. Bishop E1. And I think it's slowly dawning on both players that this is a drawish position. They can't break through to get to one another's isolated pawn and promote their own pawns. Bishop F8 from M. Chang. King C5 by Ydtd. Did I get ahead of myself? Bishop E4, bishop E7. And after bishop E7, yeah, it was at this point that the two players agreed to a draw on move 51. Outstanding game from both players. MC Chang played at a 94.1% accuracy, and Ydtd played at a 94.2% accuracy. Just a really good game by both players. That's why I wanted to highlight this. But if you go back to move 32, where Ydtd opted for 32 bishop c6 rather than the stronger b5, I think Ydtd comes out with the win. But that's nitpicking. Just a near flawless game from both players. Okay, before I go, I'd like to give a shout out to Warpath Hunter, Dr. Dion, and K. Hicks for their tremendous participation and support throughout the years. It's because of you. Well, because of you guys, Let's Castle continues to prosper. That's going to do it for us this evening. Until next time, Castlers, see ya.